Hey everyone, Marty here alongside Sean Krankel. Sean, we're here with your game Oxenfree. This is very exciting. Tell us what we're about to see. I don't know if a lot of people have heard of this.
Yeah, so thanks for having us. So Oxenfree is the first game from Night School Studio, and it's an adventure game based on some pretty crazy supernatural events that take place for a group of kids on an island that they're partying on overnight.
Okay.
And so the game, what we're about to look at right now, drops us in about 30 to 40 minutes into where the player would already naturally be having played through the game. So you are a girl named Alex, and you've just introduced to your new stepbrother Jonas, and so the two of you are going to meet up with some kids on this beach that every year the seniors go party on down on this beach that they're not supposed to be on.
Those classic seniors.
Classic seniors. So what we're looking at right now is basically everything that happens with Alex, you're in total control of. So it's a story game without cutscenes.
Okay, so everything's sort of, and as we see here, you can walk and talk ostensibly.
Right. You can walk and talk at all times. There'll be another mechanic we'll look at in a bit.
So we have freedom here to, we could be continuing the conversation with our friends. We can be looking at objects. We can sort of wander off, and the story will just adapt a little bit to that.
Right, so every moment in the game and every part of the island is pretty much explorable right from the offset. So the moment that we're seeing right here in all of this scene, if you wanted to, you could take Alex and explore up those stairs. You could walk away over to the left or to the right, and these kids would react to that. And
Yeah.
The rest of the game really works that way as well. When if the player decides to walk away, their lives continue on without you being there. And when you meet back up with them, that'll change their perception of you and also change how your story unfolds.
Totally. So this is, we pulled out a radio here, and this is a big mechanic in the game?
Yes, so the radio is something that does some stuff that turns out to be really useful a little bit later. Initially, it's just a little bit more innocuous, so we're kind of tuning in to hear a shout out from our friends back at the high school radio station. But over the course of the game, the radio gets used for uncovering some pretty weird supernatural events and for solving puzzles.
Okay, so the island's more mysterious than just an island that people drink at.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, as we'll see in a bit.
Not to say that's not mysterious, because booze islands are great too.
Booze is always good.
Yeah.
Which we give you the choice many times to drink in the game as well. There's one thing that we'll see in a bit, which is there's a cave a little bit off to the side of where the kids party, and that cave has, over the last few decades, been something that if you bring an old-fashioned radio down there and tune in while you're down in the cave, you'll hear some really weird sounds. And so it's kind of a local legend at this point. So one of the things that the kids do after they get, a little bit trashed is go over and tune into some weird stuff.
Okay, gotcha. Does this take place in modern days? Is this a sort of a 90s period piece? What's going on here?
Yeah, so the game takes place in modern day. There's definitely a lot of choices that we've made with the aesthetic to try and evoke things from the 80s and 90s, but it's definitely modern day.
The fact is, your mom divorced your dad, so let's put his mind at ease and hear why.
It's getting real.
I don't really need to know the situation before. It's none of my business.
Okay, just get to whatever point this is getting to. The point is, why'd your parents get a divorce? Just so Jonas can hear it from you.
Clarissa, I don't really care why they got...
You know why. Michael died, and it broke everything, and they couldn't handle it. The end. Well, now you know, Jonas. Don't die, and everything will be fine.
Oh.
So very quickly, we're sort of getting the characterization of these people through the dialogue choices. Is it are the characters sort of set in stone who they are, or are the decisions you make throughout the game sort of going to impact what kind of a character they are?
Yes, so each of the characters starts in the game definitely set in stone, sort of, who they are. But your choices over the course of the game absolutely change not only what their sort of personalities are and their perception of you, but even by the end of the game, who you end up going home with if you happen to succeed. So each of the characters kind of represents something different to the story. So you've got Jonas, who's your new stepbrother who you've just met, and you spend a lot of time with him over the course of the game. Ren is your best friend for years and years, and he's sort of that classic, like, super smart kid, but also a complete idiot at the same time.
Yeah.
And then Nona is the girl that he has a massive crush on.
Okay.
And then Clarissa, who's the girl that was being kind of an asshole
little
earlier.
snarky.
Is somebody who you have a little bit of a history with, and that you learn more about that over the course of the game. But each of those characters and your relationships with them, you completely influence from the moment you start playing.
Yeah. So you're saying at this point you can choose to follow the boys, or you can sort of wander off, or you can go talk to the girls.
Yep. If you wanted to, you could go back over to Clarissa and see what was up with her earlier,
Yeah.
why she was, acting the way that she was. You can go put in a good word about Ren with Nona and kind
Okay,
of try
nice.
to nudge that relationship a little bit
Yeah,
closer
yeah.
together. You can go exploring into areas that you haven't seen yet, or you can go check out what Ren's so excited about.
Okay, very cool.
Expectations accordingly.
So here's the cave I was talking about earlier. This is the cave that for years and years, every year, the seniors that come party here, they end up tuning into these weird sounds, and they leave these little rock piles that you see here to let the next year's kids know exactly where to go to try and tune in and hear some weird stuff. And
Gotcha.
for all of that time, really, these it's only been sort of perceived as kind of a strange anomaly and a fun thing to do when you're drunk, but our kids are about to push it a little bit too far.
A little bit too far. Yeah.
Use the test balloon for this anyway.
That was rude. That was selfish of him.
What
Good
a
friend share.
jerk. What a jerk.
Always leave them here so you know where to try and tune in the signals. So you're going to want to stand basically right around here.
Can we talk a little bit about the just sort of the art direction? And this game's super stylish and looks very unique among other games and other point-and-click adventure games as well. Well, I guess this isn't a point-and-click adventure
Walk
game.
and
This is
walk and talk.
Walk and talk adventure
Walk and
game.
talk and
Create a
tune.
new genre.
Walk and talk and
Walk-
tune. So the a lot of the decisions that we made early on were to try and have the environment really be one of the stars of the game, and so
Yeah.
we made some choices early on to make sure that the camera was pulled way back to make kind of these big, beautiful Pacific Northwest environments shine.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a hybrid then of 2D and 3D art, so our characters are 3D, and actually all the environments are also 3D, but they're painted in a way that feels
2D.
very
Yeah,
2D.
yeah.
And it's something that, we wanted it to feel inviting, but also over the course of the game and even over the course of what you're about to see right now, it goes pretty quickly from, hey, I want to hang out here and drink and kick it on the beach to, oh my God.
Something's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it sounds,
It's freaking me out a little.
We also chose to have the camera be as pulled back as it is so that we could see all of the characters all of the time.
Yeah.
Like, we really like this idea of you walking along and interacting with the characters over the course of the game without having any sorts of cutscenes or pulling away and trying
Totally.
to, zoom in on any particular character.
Yeah.
So this view always allows us to see all of the kids and different pieces of the environment that you need to solve.
Yeah.
cool. Fortune favors the bold. Bye.
Wait a minute, Jonas.
Well, I am going to just rest against here. I think I mismeasured
I think you mean brownie.
So we got to leave Ren. He's not doing too
He'll
good.
be fine.
But he'll be
He's
fine. Well, I don't know
zoning
about
now.
that.
I don't know if he's doing
Don't-
fine. He's
Don't
zoning.
jump to that conclusion.
So when the three dialogue choices show up, those represent sort of the three top face buttons. on a
Exactly, yeah.
controller.
So the control scheme, the way it's laid out, it's pretty much dedicated to the ability to communicate either via talking or the radio. And so the top three buttons are all mapped to those dialogue choices that pop up, and then the radio is on the trigger.
Yeah.
And then the bottom button then would be something that lets you interact sort of contextually. So when you see Alex here jumping up a ledge or climbing onto walls, the X button is used for that.
Totally. So very quickly, we enter this place that's incredibly beautiful, but sort of unnerving, and a lot of that's due
Yes.
to the soundtrack. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, we've been working with Scientific, whose real name is Andy Rorman. Sorry to out you, Andy. Scientific sounds so much cooler. Andy's inspirations for this have been everything from sort of John Carpenter to Boards of Canada, and really wanted to create this sound and feel that is really kind of analog in its approach. So
Yeah.
the way that he's been building out the game, both the score and the sound design, has been a really pretty cool kind of old school approach. Like a lot of this stuff is not done digitally. He's doing stuff where he'll record stuff through an old 1940s radio onto a reel-to-reel, and then have some weird recording that he got from a ham radio and run that from something that was up on his roof down to his basement.
Yeah.
Very mad scientist kind of a vibe. And so the soundtrack in general is intended to kind of give that feeling of a little bit evoking nostalgia, but without directly nodding back to those decades that you were talking about before.
Totally. Yeah, it gives everything sort of a timeless feel, even though it does take place in a modern era.
Yeah. So this part of the cave and kind of this moment does a good job also of just illustrating like this idea of when you get separated from the kids, they go on and live their lives. Like if you wanted to, you could try to escape this cave right now, and we won't look at that part, but a strange event would happen if you did that. You know, the idea is that the island was initially back in the 40s sort of this military outpost. But after the 40s, it turned a little bit more into a tourist trap. So you've got, you know, half the island is a little bit more visitor friendly, where there's a main street where people go shopping, or there's campgrounds and stuff. But then there's also this other half that's a lot more rugged. So you've got the woods, and you've got abandoned military forts, and you've got these caves that you're looking at right now. So this is a spot that the kids really shouldn't be. But as you go through the game, you'll revisit a lot of these places, and so will the other kids. And depending on your choices, whether or not to stay with them or move on, when you meet back up with them, some pretty crazy events could have happened.
Very cool.
So the idea is really then that the island is like this living, breathing thing over the course of the night, and that different events, no matter what you do, are going to take place in different places.
Yeah, whether you're there for them or not.
Exactly.
The way the three dialogue choices are set up, are they always sort of the same tone? Is always going to be in the top one or the left one, or is it, you know, every time it'll be sort of a different thing? Like will it be almost a positive tone, a negative tone, or a neutral tone?
Every time it's a different thing. That's something that early on we sort of thought, why don't we map it to an emotion? But a lot of times, you know, we're trying to go as often as possible for more of a gray area, so that the choices really don't start to subconsciously, for the player, map to like, I'm going to be a jerk, I'm going to be a jerk, I'm going to be a jerk, you know? And it's a little bit more of just a natural reaction.
Three natural responses to it.
Yeah.
What the hell's going on with this triangle in the sky?
I don't know. So this is really where the radio starts to get crazy and interesting. The stuff that was happening earlier is cool because you're getting these kind of prescribed stations to tune into.
Yeah.
But at this point, the radio becomes much more of a feel thing. So Adam, who's doing our demo right now and showing the game, is kind of feeling his way through these different hotspots.
Yeah.
And the more you go through it, you're unlocking something not so good.
I don't know what.
Listen, bobtail, shavetail, sleepy, time, gal, is possible.
Yeah, sure. Leave possible.
Bobtail.
Leave, children. Bye.
We'll see you soon.
Alex!
Jonas doesn't look okay.
No. Nothing's looking good there.
Nothing looks good there.
I have no idea what the hell just happened, but I'm very excited to see what the hell's going to happen afterwards. So this is, I mean, what's sort of leading up to this point, the tone was very much sort of like kids coming of age story, and then we had that, which is, you know, so completely different. So what's, I mean, how do you describe this game?
Yeah, so that's definitely intentional. I think that as we've looked at a lot of the different types of films that we've kind of been referencing leading up to this, things like Krankel, or, you know, looking at Stand By Me, things like that, where you've got this juxtaposition of some really over-the-top things that if you were to set some kids against these scenarios, it's all the more kind of off-putting when you see, you know, a group of kids that you've grown, you know, familiar with and you like as you're talking to them over the course of the game. And so that's really our intent here, is to go, okay, how do we let you really build some relationships with these different characters and have some very natural feeling conversations, so that when the shit hits the fan, it really feels like it, right? And so, I mean, we right out of the gate wanted to make sure that we had a protagonist that did not feel overpowered and just felt like a natural person that you'd want to sort of inhabit. And same thing with the rest of the kids. We don't really want to cartoonize them too much, and so that's why when you see all of them, even when Clarissa was getting kind of as mean as she was, she's not this kind of over the top antagonist.
Yeah,
right?
it's almost like one of those like, well, I've been there before. So,
Right,
yeah,
right. And
yeah.
we want so we're kind of drawing on all of that as we look at each of the characters. We want all the experiences to be something that does feel familiar, like you said. And so I think it's we over the course of the game, then those relationships continue to develop, but sort of that stage setting that just happened right now, all the kids are about to deal with the problems that just happened right after that event that we saw right there. You basically now need to go reconnect with those people, save those people, figure out what the hell you just unleashed underwater, and get off the island before the sun rises.
Yeah.
And so, those relationships, we want them to play out as realistically as possible given such crazy circumstances.
That is insane. I am super stoked to see this. This is about 40 minutes into the game, so I'm very excited to see everything that happens afterwards. Oxenfree is coming later this year,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
That's as vague as we are?
That is as vague as
Okay,
we are.
2015.
Yes, 2015.
I don't want to rush you guys.
Yep, no
It
worries.
seems super cool. We're all excited for it here. Thank you guys so much for stopping by.
Thank you for having us.
Sean,
Very excited to
it's
show
our
it.
absolute pleasure. We're going to have a lot more on Oxenfree leading up to its release later on this year. So for everything else, rad video games like this, you're already in the right place, IGN.com.